I think this video may just have a small interest, but I'm going to make it because sometimes I try to do things cheaply and it ends up costing me in the run. This is just a simple paint scraper that I picked up at HEB. Sorry about that glare. It's really inexpensive, and as you can see, it's really poorly made. So the blade holder here is crooked. It wasn't put together right, and it doesn't fully lock. And when it does lock, the blade is all cattywampus. So it's not. I didn't buy this to scrape paint. I actually bought this to do skiving on the leather. And if you're familiar with doing leather work, then you've seen guys cut down leather, slim it out where two pieces go together so they can be easily sewn, or so that it doesn't look as bulky. When you have, four pieces of leather coming together, you want to make that as thin as possible. And I thought I would get away with doing it on the cheap by getting a paint scraper. I mean, it's essentially the same thing. It has a razor blade on it. It cuts straight like this. And, it should have been relatively easy. But I won't even show you with this because it's embarrassing. I almost cut myself a couple times. So, and even as a paint scraper, I wouldn't recommend this. I mean, if you're desperate, I guess, but you're going to hurt yourself with this in any application. It's just not worth the. I think I paid $2.50 for it, but even that, I mean, it's okay as a piece of scrap metal, but that's it. Don't go and hurt yourself with this thing. It's really poorly made. So then I thought, well, I like the paint scraper idea, because I didn't want to pay. A moon knife is $50, and if you're familiar with the moon knife, it's like a half circle knife that has a handle like this, but it's also very large. It's like 5 or 6 inches across. Most of the ones I've seen are fairly large, maybe even more than that. And I didn't want that. So again, I went out and on the cheap, for under $3, I got another paint scraper. And this one I got at Walmart, and it's actually pretty good. I'm surprised. It holds the blade well. It locks into place. The blade is not cattywampus. It's pretty straight across. So I'd have no problem using this as a scraper and also as a skiving tool. But it's not quite as good as a real skiving tool. So I'll show you some skiving with this, and then I'll get to this, which I got off of Amazon, which is also a skiving knife. Was not as expensive and not as big as the moon knife. Okay, I had to free up my hands here. Once again, we have the paint scraper that I was trying to use for a skiving knife. And then we have this, which is actually a skiving knife, which is relatively inexpensive on Amazon. I think I paid just under $10. And if there's any doubts, this thing is sharp, like razor sharp. So I got to be careful because in demonstrating this, I don't want to cut my fingers off. But this thing came from Amazon, razor sharp, and I don't know what the characters on there say, but probably says be careful, don't cut yourself. So let's try them out. So the object of skiving is to get, for example, if you were going to attach this tip somewhere, and you had to get it almost flush with whatever you were attaching it to. You want to cut this down, so you'll have to scrape the non-finished side off of here, and you do that with what's called a skiving knife. And there are many variations. I've actually seen people use sharpened hacksaw blades, and those guys are have been doing leather work for years, and they're very talented, and they've probably made those themselves. But even with this paint scraper, I can get under there, and as you can see, I can thin out that leather. And now you can see that this part that I skived is thinner. But again, this is not an optimal solution. I'll do it again with the paint scraper. And it's very hard to control and get the depth that I want. And there we go. Again, I mean, it's not the worst I've seen, but it's hard to control and it's hard to get the proper depth. So now we're going to go with this corner, and I'll do it with the, that'll focus. I'll do it with the inexpensive knife I got off Amazon. Notice how the cut here is much better, and it's much easier to control. That is a fine, fine slice of leather that I'm able to skive off there. And if you also notice, it skives the whole piece. And again, just simply in 2 passes, I've easily skived this down. And I can even go a little finer if I, am very careful. When you're making fine leather goods, it's imperative to have a good skiving knife. And for $10, I think I really got a bargain. This thing is easy to use, and man, does it do the job. Look how thin that is on the tip. And I can do the whole piece that way with this knife. Like I said, it's razor sharp. So no need to skimp if you're in the market for a skiving knife. I'll include a link to this one. It's a really good bargain for $10. Scav Trooper Munoz, I'm out.